I want to get your reaction to President Biden's speech today and his specifics about Texas.
I thought it was so powerful, and he laid out in the starkest terms the attack that we're seeing right now in our democracy. The insurrection on the 6th of January, all of these attempts in different state legislatures to make it harder for people to vote. And he singled out Texas in that speech, I think in part because this is already the toughest state in which to register, cast a ballot, and the Republican-controlled state legislature and a Republican governor are trying to make it even harder, especially on those with disabilities, on Black and brown voters, on voters who live in big cities. The speech was wonderful, and it was a speech the country needed to hear. The only thing missing, though, Lawrence, was a call to make an exception to the filibuster for voting rights legislation. He diagnosed the problem perfectly. He laid it all out for us so that we understand just how perilously close we are to losing our democracy. But then he did not provide the prescription that we've been waiting for, which is that we must summon the political courage and will to change the rules of the Senate, where a pro-democracy Democratic majority has the votes to get voting rights legislation like the For the People Act passed. That's what's missing. So I hope this is just the first of many speeches the president is going to give. And in the next one, he will make the case for changing the filibuster. That is an imperative if we're going to save democracy.
Let's listen to more about what the president said today, especially in terms of the last election, where at least last time around, he, as he puts it, democracy held.
Because of the extraordinary courage of elected officials, many of them Republicans, our court system, and those brave Capitol Police officers, because of them, democracy held.
One of the fascinating things about that is that one of the Republicans who helped the system hold, as he put it, was the Georgia Secretary of State, who has since then joined this change in Georgia, which he approves of in their new election law, which actually gives the Secretary of State less authority than before. And so as good as he was in the last election, the Georgia Secretary of State is not on the helping side of this issue now.
Yeah, there was a really important passage in that speech where he talked about who will be able to count your vote and whether your vote will count at all when Republican-controlled legislatures can take control of the local elections boards, as they are doing in Georgia right now. Then the victory he enjoyed in the November 2020 election, first Democratic nominee to win the Electoral College votes in that state in I don't know how many decades. I don't know, Lawrence, if that is possible in 2024 when those Republican-controlled election boards can overturn the count of the vote. They'll now have the power to do that. And as you know, that was a provision that was in the elections bill in Texas during the regular session. We may see its reappearance in the current version of it, but it would allow the state of Texas to overturn statewide elections going forward. So, you know, though the president said that we must organize and band together and do this as Americans before we're Republicans and Democrats, I agree with all of that, but it is insufficient to the challenge at hand. That organizing will not stop the overturning of elections in Georgia and Texas. What we need is voting rights legislation, and we need the For the People Act specifically, and we need the president to make the case to the country, to the whole country, that we need to make an exception in the filibuster rule for voting rights legislation. We made exceptions for Supreme Court justices, federal judges, budget reconciliation issues that can pass on a simple majority. Let us make an exception for democracy. That's all we're asking for, not for Democrats, not for Republicans, but for America and this 245-year and counting experiment. That's what's at stake at this moment.
There is also a little noticed exception in the Senate, as I'm sure you know, that fast tracks international trade agreements. They can get fast tracked through the Senate in a way that voting rights cannot at this point. But it seems, you know, what you're saying about this rule, about that 60 vote threshold and Joe Manchin's position on it, does seem to be something that President Biden knows well and has been, at least privately with James Clyburn, working on Senator Manchin on this very issue. I mean, I think, as you know, those those are the kinds of things that they do in private as long as they possibly can and try to get to some agreement in private. And we're going to find out whether they get there privately or not at some point. But the focus of the Texas legislators now is on Joe Manchin, and they've got a meeting, hoping for a meeting with him on Thursday.
Yeah, those Texas legislators are the moral leverage that this debate needed. And I'm so grateful for their heroism and courage by coming up to Washington, D.C., leaving their families, their homes, their jobs, and facing arrest when they return to the state, putting it all on the line for democracy, for America. And it's hard to see that example and not be inspired. It's hard to see their courage and not look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, what am I doing for my country right now? That's all of us across the country asking that question, especially, I hope, those Democrats who are in the political majority in the Senate. I mean, this is their moment of truth because it is our moment of truth. And they have the power to deliver right now. So I hope those Democrats from Texas will stay there for as long as it takes to get this done. The special session in Texas lasts through the beginning of August. That seems to fit nicely with the U.S. Senate voting schedule. I hope that they can bring the For the People Act back for a vote and then take a vote on amending the filibuster to make that exception for voting rights. And if they do, I think we'll have a lot of gratitude owed to those Texas State House and Texas Senate Democrats who made the trip to Washington.
How is the Democrats' trip to Washington playing in Texas?
You know what? We are behind them 100%. Yesterday, we put the call out, Powered by People, asking folks to pitch in whatever they could to support those Texas Democrats so that they have the resources they need while they wage this fight in D.C. As of this moment, I think we're over $450,000 raised, $5, $25, $50 at a time, 100% of which, by the way, is going to them. Those who have the courage of their convictions, we're going to make sure that we have their back. And so those are the people of Texas putting their money where their mouth is, saying we support you. We know that you're taking the fight to where it needs to be won in the United States Capitol. And you stay as long as you need to get the job done. Because if we don't have voting rights, if we don't have democracy, then anything else that we care about, an economy that works for everyone, healthcare for all, racial justice, confronting climate change before it's too late, none of that is possible if we can't vote. They get that. And so they're fighting that good fight up in D.C. right now.